Hello aspirants, looking at editorials and question bank for 1st Feb. The first editorial in the Hindu newspaper is Cricket's New Order. So this is regarding the Committee of Administrators, the 4-member body which has been appointed by the Supreme Court headed by former CAG Vinod Rai, which we did in news yesterday. So this is part of the continuing judicial exercise to reform cricket's administration. So this is the case. The editorial says that only one of the 4 appointees is a representative of cricket because she was a former player, cricket player, and remaining 3 are not from cricket background. One is cricket chronicler, a historian, Ramchandra Guha. Then one is a public auditor, former public auditor, and another one is a financial expert. So whether these are the most suitable candidates to administer BCCI is, put forth that whether they are the ones or rather it should have been administrators from BCCI who should have been appointed. So that is one aspect which is highlighted. And the next aspect which it talks of is that the objectives which the judiciary has to reform cricket administration, and later we have seen even other sports persons have said that other sport bodies in the country also need reforms. So the initiative which the judiciary has taken is highly laudable, appreciated, because it is planning to cleanse the administration, bring credibility, because there's a huge credibility deficit because the administration has been reform resistant. So bringing in credibility, people's faith and confidence in the organization is also important, and revamping the system because there was huge conflict of interest even with respect to IPL. Separating IPL and BCCI administration was the first step which had been taken when this initiative was started. And also there is unchecked commercialization in this industry. So that was what was the objective with which it went ahead on reforms. The Supreme Court has already declared that running of cricket in India is a public function. So though it is a private organization, BCCI is a society, private society registered under Societies Registration Act. So there have been questions asking that how a private society's functioning can be questioned by the Supreme Court. But then Supreme Court has said that administering cricket is a public function, though it may be a private society. So that was the basis on which the whole set of reforms have been unfolded. The Lodha panel which had been appointed and the reforms which have gone ahead. So the recommendations which had been provided by Lodha panel had been almost all accepted by the Supreme Court and made binding on the BCCI. And when the former president Anurag Thakur tried to stall the reforms, he was even prosecuted under, he was found guilty also under contempt of court proceedings because he had also taken initiatives to go to ICC, International Cricket Council, to seek its viewpoint and to ask it to write a letter that judicial intervention in BCCI is actually interference in its administration, government's interference in its administration. So that had all been come out in the open, and he was found guilty on contempt of court. He had also lied under oath. That was also an accusation on him, which was proved. So this is regarding the reforms, to major reforms which had been resisted by BCCI. So these were one state, one member, one vote. So every state will have one member in BCCI and one vote. So this is resisted because some are major states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, they have 3 Ranji Trophy teams each. So then if they get only one vote along with some northeastern states, so that how can that be a balance as such is question. Then players in the Apex Council. So this is also an initiative, a reform recommended by Lodha panel. Age limit of 70 years, when also the ministers and government servants cannot be members in these national sport bodies. Then nomination of CAG representative in BCCI. This was also a recommendation. And keeping BCCI president out of the IPL governing council. So these were some major recommendations of Lodha panel. Then these are the 4 BCCI administrators, committee of administrators who have been appointed. So earlier Supreme Court had asked Centre to that it can give names as well, but then Centre had said that Secretary of Sports Ministry should be appointed as one of the administrators, but Supreme Court had rejected this recommendation. So this is regarding Anurag Thakur, the former BCCI president, and secretary to Ajay Shirke, who were removed after the Lodha panel recommendations were resisted by them and not implemented at BCCI and also state association level. So that is the development so far. The next editorial in the Hindu is Demonetization's long shadow. So this is regarding the demonetization's long shadow on the economic survey. So economic survey has been presented on the eve of the union budget, and it has been dominated by a singular action of the government, that is demonetization. The chief economic advisor, Arvind Subramaniam, he says that demonetization was a radical governance cum social engineering measure which has been taken. It is having short-term costs on the economy, but it would result in long-term benefits. So that is asserted in the survey. Also, it says that the real GDP growth for the current fiscal has been reduced. It is likely to reduce to about 7%, but it says that this is because of various factors. So last fiscal we had 7.6% GDP growth, but then that was because global oil prices were declining, and now they have stopped declining at that rate. So that is why the GDP growth forecast has been reduced as well, because there are demand shocks also triggered due to demonetization. All international forecasts by various international organizations, by World Bank, International Monetary Fund, IMF, have also been reduced, citing demonetization as the reason clearly. So this was the World Bank trimmed its forecast. So they had a forecast of 7.6% both. World Bank trimmed it to 7%, and IMF brought it down to by 1 percentage point to 6.6%, and both citing demonetization as the reason. In the present economic survey, one complete chapter has been devoted to demonetization, and the survey has recommended fast demand-driven remonetization, furthering of tax reforms, bringing in land and real estate under GST, reducing the tax rates and stamp duty. So these will help in overcoming demonetization and bringing economy on a fast track again. Also, risks because of international factors like Brexit, the US election result is also being highlighted. The next year's forecast is given as for 2016-17. It says the growth rate would be 6.75 to 7.5%, and also it adds the condition caveat that lingering effects of demonetization, oil prices, possible rise of trade protectionism, these could jeopardize the forecast. Then the forecast may not turn true if these factors play as to the extent that they can. So there are concerns too.